Hi, hello, welcome to the second set of this video. It's not really part two, and it's not really a series. I guess it's a part two. Anywho, recently, namely last week, if this came out properly, we had covered a game, Citizen Sleeper. Go watch that video if you haven't already. There's going to be, again, spoilers to this, and the video will talk about other spoilers and stuff, but go watch that. I'll give you some time. Okay, well, let's move on to this. Mechanics! How to run your game with certain themes. You might be wondering, of what themes? Because namely, I'm not going to be discussing sci-fi. Well, I will be discussing sci-fi. I won't stay in the realm of sci-fi. Because that's not how the second part goes. It's covering themes into mechanics, how those two can translate, and how we can apply that to many different settings, games, scenarios, sessions, campaigns, tables. This fell off. This is going to be like the Frostpunk videos, where one video was talking about the game, and the second video was talking about a specific conversion of it into tabletop RPGs. And not one-to-one, or not necessarily what the game itself was intended for. Okay, this is also sounding a bit strange. For example, the Frostpunk video covered a steampunk second Ice Age city builder survival game. But we did not make tabletop RPGs which were just that. No, we still had to run it like a party, we still had characters, we still had motivations, we just focused a bit more on resources, environment, and some of the things you might face and the way the campaign could be structured. And this is what we're doing here. So first things first, in Citizen Sleeper, you're a character who's been dealt a bad hand. And that'll be the starting point, and not a point too far off from where most games start, because usually if you're an adventurer, you're not in the best situation to begin with. And that goes for anything sci-fi, fantasy, Call of Cthulhu, you're already not in a good spot. But in Citizen Sleeper, there are mechanics that can reduce that hand. You have your condition and your energy, which are always being depleted. How do we work that into the general mechanics of this? Well, you could have your character suffering from grand wounds, though we're getting a step ahead, because we also need to talk about how you're actually working with the game. So in Citizen Sleeper, something that's about to help us is it is a dice game. You have skill checks, you have skills, you have perks. It's quite formulaic in that sense, where we can just easily apply it. But we're not gonna be divinationist wizards from 5e rolling important dice for everything for every character. That's not too entertaining on an entire table. Though you could run it that way. The important thing is to limit the number of rolls they can get. So there will be exceptions to that. Namely for general activities, or, you know, the stuff on the downtime table in 5e, or the scavenging, or stuff that's supposed to take hours. Like, oh, you're going to help this artisan make this fine, like, carved statue for this princess. Yeah, that'll be boiled down to one roll. However, you'll be limiting down those one roll situations. If it's a situation that can be boiled down to one roll, then you're only gonna give it 5 per day. In session, not literally, but the idea is that now the party has a certain resource of, it's kind of represent time, effort, energy, and a specific resource of how they can actually allocate things. Because usually in games, at least sometimes when I run it, things like shopping sessions, or just talking to NPCs back and forth, or going through a marketplace, or working on that building or that statue scenario can keep going. Not necessarily they go on for a super long time, but they'll consistently perpetuate themselves. There'll be a bunch of roles there. That's a minor issue. In this one, each character per day limited to 5, which, just like the deck, might be lessened. The exception is when it comes to specific encounters, so all those previous situations are all stuff like downtime things, which, to be honest, Citizen Sleeper is mostly downtime. It's going around the station, finishing jobs, trying to make cryo, but when it comes to encounters, which are when you're talking to people, or you're in a very tight situation and you need to get things done under a certain time frame, like, I don't know, some bounty hunter pressing a gun to the back of your head, then it'll go to the usual moment-to-moment, turn-to-turn during those situations and talking back and forth. High pressure. And that doesn't count for one of the allocation slots. Because the big thing is, this is a downtime-focused session or campaign. Because that's what Citizen Sleeper is. Because it's that slice of life, it's the just making it through the days. Usually in a session we'll have something tight happen within just 24 hours, multiple combat sessions, various talking in between. When it comes to Citizen Sleeper, that can happen over the course of 40 days. And you just gotta make it day to day, on top of everything else that can go on around you, and the situations you can be caught up in. Now your campaign is not just down to those encounters, but how every player is allocating and rolling in all of those separate sources outside of the combat and specific encounter. Because it's a game where you have to manage yourself. Though the question is, why would you be? Because in downtime, there's no threat. In Citizen Sleeper there is, and that is your condition and your energy. Energy is a simple one that can be translated to a lot of systems of just not getting food, not getting rest. It's your character not having a good night's sleep. Some equivalent to exhaustion, or weakening or poisoning. You don't have enough energy to actually accomplish something. And when it comes to your condition, you could have it that your characters are dying. You could have it that, yes, you are something like a sleeper and you're degrading over time. You could have it you're a magical plague victim that's trying to cure themselves or hold back this disease. And this magical leper walking through this city is treated with hostility, despair, potential fear. While yes, you're actually harmless and it's just affecting you, the church in the nearby town doesn't think so. And so instead of a bounty hunter, you have a crazy zealot on you. Or you could take the robot route, and if it's fantasy-wise, you're something like a construct or a warforge, and you are actively falling apart and trying to repair yourself. It could be some witches cursed you, some demons trying to possess you. It could be a number of things of some kind of internal ticking clock independent to the character, and thus could be the whole party. Now, how would you rule that to actually have it be evenly balanced amongst the party? I'd recommend a system that allowed everyone amongst the table to get cured, essentially, or fixed in the same session. Because if you had it individually to a single player, you'd have a lot of players hoarding that resource. So, something that fixes the party each time you get it. Or you could have it as an independent resource. Just give it a bit more often than it does in Citizen Sleeper. Because in Citizen Sleeper, you're worrying about one character, so it's very stiff to get, and you have to hold on to it. When it comes to 4 people at a table, their degradation might be happening at different points. You might want to give them a bit more. You have a few different issues. So, first off, energy. When energy goes to 0, some activities take it, some failures take it, some poisoning take it, whatever. You can lose energy from a variety of sources. That can even be a pseudo temp health, because once that's out, then your condition begins to fail. If you would then normally lose energy. So your characters in your games getting tired, not being able to get enough food, not being able to find a nice place to rest, then your condition begins to worsen even faster. That magical leper isn't looking too well. When condition's lower, you have few dice options, and in this case, we'll just give it few chances. So instead of the 5 sessions of doing stuff outside of working for someone, give it 1 roll, going to talk to investigate some kind of clue, 1 roll. Now you'll have less per day, which to be fair, other party members can take you up on and try to fill in that gap, but you have that pool as a party to work with, and each person independently begins to lose dice. And speaking of that race against the clock, the clocks! Because in Citizen Sleeper, it is not just your health, it is not just your hunger, it is not just the various situations that you're talking to, it is all the ticking clocks, as just with the previous video. Or it could be things you're actively trying to avoid or running from, like, I don't know, some kind of curse hitting a town, that bounty hunter scenario, or that crazy zealot coming to purge you, an inquisitor showing up, money coming due. It could be any number of things, and it's also counted in failures and successes. So if you're investigating a certain area trying to look for a cure, but you're annoying the local guards on multiple failures, then you're kicked out of that ward. But on a number of successes, you actually find what you're looking for to the next step. But now, we've set up the mechanics that are going to put your party and the characters therein under said pressures. Now, you might not have general big combats, that's also not what's in Citizen Sleeper, really. You could still have them, do not get me wrong. It could be that ticking clock of that zealot coming to purge you, ends up in an encounter, you beat him off, goes silent, but there's still going to be another zealot coming. And it just kind of gives you a chance to save yourself from that impending doom. But this time, maybe the clock's shorter, or the enemy forces that come are stronger. If it's something like Call of Cthulhu, it could be a cult that's performing a ritual, and each time they have more members, or the things they're summoning are even more vicious or numerous. It could be that madness is plaguing you, and each time that ritual goes through, it gets worse and worse and worse, and eventually you'll degrade, but this is an event and combat that takes time. This is not something, just like the Frostpunk one, this is not a campaign which is just cut the head of the snake off, at least initially. This is trying to make it for as long as possible. 1, keeping your party and yourselves up and at 'em. Oh heck, with Call of Cthulhu one, your condition could be your sanity. You could have some kind of post-apocalypse setting where the energy again is like your hunger and thirst, and then your condition just actually is you dying of radiation poisoning. But in general, the conflicts you're trying to solve are something that occurs over a long time, and generally just making it. Because yes, like I said, various endings, and the way you get there is not through one afternoon of gun-ho, guns ablaze, boomer shooter down a hallway. It's namely just trying to work your way through everything and where you find yourself. Now yes, that could be scavenging, but I think that would be more angled for an urban environment, especially because of where the game takes place, but in that system of downtime. Because usually when you're out in the wilds, it's random encounters, or in dungeons, it's combat and searching and exploring. which this type of game would not have that much focus on. No, it would be a lot more on the roleplay, a lot more on the NPCs, a lot more on the schemes and things that are going on around you, and an urban environment. It could be a small village, could be a dwarven hold, could be some, again, spacecraft or space station or post-apocalyptic caravan. But just as with the previous video and some of its general descriptions and the way I talked about it, and if you watched it, you'll know that's generally a slice of life, or at least feels as close as it can get to it. Because yes, you have your struggles, yes, there's the bad guys and some big events on occasion and some crazy, crazy stuff on the hacking side of things. But really, again, the NPCs you're around, the stories you hear, the story you are trying to do, is you came to the Eye in escaping and trying to survive, and a lot of what you're doing here is finding purpose. Again, you weren't sent here to kill something. You weren't sent here to run down a hallway with a gun and gray textures with soap trying to kill you. Is that game? I've never played the Call of Duty games. So, in short, it's not a city management game, and it's party management more on the sense of making it day to day. If honestly, I think Hunter the Reckoning would be a very fine system for this. But there's other systems that could easily be adapted to this or work naturally within it. And there's stuff that already have some of the mechanics, Scuba Benoit. Really, that next part comes up to you. And I recommend down in the comments mentioning systems that might work with it or easy conversions. I'm just here to get the ball rolling. Anyways, thank you for watching, and honestly, looking forward to what's down in the comments. You know, videos are up there, and the subscribe button. Stick around if you like this content, and mention below other games and stuff you'd like to see. And again, the systems and easy conversions. I'd love to see them. Anywho, see you later. Bye.